So, hi. I'll start the webinar off. My name is Caleb. I am the founder and CEO of Interact. We utilize and we specialize in specifically gamification marketing, gamification in employee engagement, gamification in conferences, and so on. I'll do a little bit of an introduction on the slides as well, but just a brief overview. I have been working on gamification for around 9 years now, doing both marketing-related activities, but also kind of thinking how can game design or game concepts in general be utilized in non-game contexts. So my background is mostly either on development and gamification. I was the lead gamification designer in an agency in New York called Dopamine, where we did a bunch of awesome different kind of gamified and engaging approaches. And now with the software that we are running right now called Interact, is how we can kind of demonstrate the results and how this gamification comes to life without any coding and without any excess development and resources required. So I will start off. I'll add my slide to the screens. I know with all the webinars, there's always questions, whether there will be slides and recordings. I promise I will answer that question at the end of this webinar. So, welcome. This is the webinar for how to gamify your marketing in 2022 Christmas edition. As I said before, if you were here earlier, then I personally believe, and I've seen all the case studies where Christmas is the best seasonal kind of event where gamification could be applied. It has the highest click-through rates, it has the highest retention, it has the highest engagements, and so on, for the reasons of just people are more susceptible, whatever, to those gamification or marketing campaigns in general. And most of the times companies have something to offer. I'll go briefly over on the Q&A part on whether you should have any prizes associated to your campaigns as well, which I believe you do. Spoiler alert. And usually companies have some stuff allocated to distribute, or some campaigns or discounts to be eligible during Christmas campaigns. Now, the trick here is why to use gamification, which I'm about to go into more detail. But in short, you can just get much more bang out of the buck. You just get more results when you are using interactiveness compared to non-interactiveness. So let's get started. As I said before, I have done a bunch of different gamified concepts for some of the largest companies in the world: Volkswagen, Carrefour, Twitch, Caesars, and so on. Currently, there's a common question as well, like which companies can utilize gamification. Looking at our own client portfolio, there are companies from FMCG to banks to finances to public sector to cinemas, restaurants. I believe we have covered around 14 different verticals. So there's really no end to which companies could use it. And also, spoiler alert, if you end up in a one-on-one demo or a conversation with me after this webinar, then I am 100%, I can pretty much guarantee that I can come up on the spot with a gamified campaign that will suit you. But that more about that when we're actually having a one-on-one discussion. So very shortly, just to give an introduction of what we're about to talk. Of course, I'll give you a couple of examples. I'll also build some examples on the spot. So I encourage you to kind of, even if you're not be able to fully focus, then don't close the webinar, because at some point I will start to actually build those campaigns for you, build those examples. And I guarantee that it's probably something that will kind of blow your mind in that sense, that it actually explains how to do it step by step. So make sure to kind of not leave midway through. But the main three topics that I want to stop on is the increase of the click-through rates on gamified ads. It's the increase on retention and engagement on gamified ads. And then it's the cost effectiveness that I can kind of demonstrate towards the end of this webinar. So first, before we get into the everything in more detail, let me just set the scene of what we're about to talk about. I mean, what is gamification marketing? What is gamification in general, and so on? A lot of you may know, and a lot of you may have your own kind of ideas, and that's great. Usually, one kind of common misconception is that it's only using games, or the other side of the misconception is it's only awarding badges, or it's only awarding points for specific activities in your application, and so on. But in marketing specifically, there's actually more meat to the bone than this. So let me divide the concept into two parts. So in my mind, we have two main different types of gamification. Actually, three. I just kind of thought of the third that I should have added here, but I'll just say it on the spot. So the gamified content part is where you have some kind of content that you are sharing with your audience. Either it's a blog post, either it's your pricing, either it's a news article, either it's top 10 tips, whatever. It's some kind of content or description of your service that you kind of write out. You have a document outlining, the benefits and everything about it, and then visitors can interact with that content. Now, that means of taking some texts and taking the points that you're making and turning those points into an interactive experience. I'll show you everything, how to do it in this webinar. So the second part is the actual games, where you would want to convert your message or convert your value offering or convert your specific product or product launch into a game, into an interactive game. And in here, I actually mean a playable game. Now, in those kinds of, we need to understand there's the games that we're referring to, they're not like multiplayer, RPG, Diablo-like, immersive games. But the idea and the reasons for those games is it's a quick interaction where you don't need any tutorials, but it's a way where people can score and they can improve and they can play again. But the key part there is it's around 45 to 60 second interaction where people only interact with the game by tapping on the screen or clicking the mouse. There's no more complexity to it. So those two types, and the third type that I was about to say will be the interactive raffling. So non-interactive raffling will be like, leave us your email, and then in 4 weeks' time, we'll let you know whether you won. Interactive raffling will be, leave us your email, do something, and find out whether you won. That do something can either be, a Wheel of Fortune, a scratch card, a Plinko, a fortune cookie, or whatever. But the main ingredient here that ties everything together is this magical word called interactiveness or interact. And that is what we want to achieve with gamification marketing. Now, how can we interact? When you're doing interactive content, then some examples that are most used is, for example, the action that you take is to memorize something, or to sort something, or to guess something, or to give your opinion on something. But doing it requires you to actually focus a little bit and kind of use your brain power to understand what are you about to do, and then either do a click or a tap or an actual action. So with the games, the action is quite simpler, or more game-like. It can be running, aiming, catching something, jumping onto something, but the interactivity in the game is what happens if you click on the screen. Now, we have in my experience and in my kind of career, I've used over 40 different, maybe even more, let's say around 40 different this kind of interactive types or those challenges where the users have to do something. So this is a very kind of condensed list, but to kind of see what I'm talking about, or to provide some examples. So these are actual examples from campaigns that have been created with us. So for example, if you want them to memorize something and the interactiveness is the memorization, then the game, for example, that kind of ties it together is, well, it's actually called the memory game. meaning you kind of flip over two icons and you see what's behind them. And if you find a match, then they remain untitled. And then the game is about, actually combining or finding all the pairs. Then we have the action of guessing. If you know the very popular game that was and that still is in UK and the rest of the world is Wordle, for example. It's a word guessing game where you ask a question and then you provide your users with a lot of different kind of letters, and they have to guess what is the correct word. Now, if they have the right letters in the right locations, then it appears green. If it's the right letter but in the wrong location, it appears yellow. And if that letter doesn't even appear, then it appears gray. So the user will have some amount of times to guess what's the correct word by getting more hints based on how many times they actually answered or guessed. And then, for example, opinionating. You ask a question to ask for an opinion of someone. Now, one way of doing it is just write it in the text box, like give us feedback. But that's the most kind of boring or less interactive way that you can ask for opinion. One example that I'm showing you here is a game where a company asked, which company would you rather invest into? And then there was around 20 different options, and every time the game started, and every time you kind of clicked on your opinion, just two random pairs paired together, and it's just one or the other. And then the second pair came together, it's one or the other. And then at the end of the game, you have this kind of results leaderboard. Then there's a couple of examples from the actual gameplay. So aiming, it's very popular game of like bubble shooter where you're aiming the kind of ball to fly and get the matches. You need to have at least 3 colors in a row, and then they disappear and explode, right? So you're kind of aiming to the right direction. Catching, where objects fall from the sky and you have to catch specific objects but avoid some objects that you don't want to collect. This can be, again, there's 1,000,001 ways to kind of turn that game into a game that communicates your values or communicates your product. For example, if you have a product, let's say a drink, and you're catching some objects into the drink, then those objects that you're catching represents the flavors of that drink. So now you are within a game explaining how which flavors are represented in that drink. And then jumping, there's this kind of a Christmas Flappy Birds game where instead of a Flappy Bird, you have Santa Claus who is flying around, avoiding obstacles. You're clicking to make it fly higher and navigate between obstacles to collect those gifts. Now, the main difference with those is when we're talking about games, then here we want to have like a possibility to score and possibility to have people compete against each other for the highest scores. When we are talking about interactive content, then the scoring is less important, but more important is, do they get something out of it by completing it? So with the games, always recommend having some kind of a score-based system or a leaderboard or something, because that's one of the key ingredients that I'm about to talk about later regarding retention. With all the, quick note, with all the questions, you can either have any questions prompted during this webinar, or I'll just figure out whether I can answer them on the go, or I'll get through all of them after towards the end of the webinar. So why does it work? Why is it important? Why is the interactivity so important? Because every time you do something, you get feedback. Every time if you would imagine, you will just ask opinion, and the opinionating or asking the opinion is just writing out the text form, then the only feedback that you will probably get is, well, thank you for completing the form. But in an interactive experience, you can have feedback instantly. For example, how do your guesses compare to everyone else's guesses? You'll see the results, and then you'll see if you make an option, then how many percentage of people made that exact same option. If you play a game, then every time you collect something in a game, you get feedback for how many points did you get by collecting that object. Now that feedback ties very strictly together with the interactivity, and the result of it is the focus, which is my kind of favorite or my most important part. So there's one question, I'll get to it in a second. So the focus here is, the reason why it's my favorite part is because gamified interactions are impossible. They're literally impossible to interact with without having your full focus. It's very easy to watch a Netflix series, and it's very easy to watch a commercial, and it's very easy, for example, to watch this webinar without being fully focused, because I'm not asking you to do something. You're not actively participating. But when you are, and when you're kind of involving all your senses into that activity, then it's impossible to not be fully focused on the activity. And that also shows on the case study results that I'm about to show you later as well. So that's the kind of key ingredient why gamification marketing works, because every time someone interacts with you, they're 100% fully focused. And that also means that there are emotions involved. Every time you get some feedback, or every time you get some result, or every time you're playing a game, there's some sort of emotion attached to it. Now, whether it's disappointment that you didn't score high enough, whether it's surprise because you thought that the actual correct answer to a trivia question was something else, it's irrelevant. As long as there is emotion involved, then that's the key ingredient for producing memories. And that is the exact same reason why when we are doing demos and we are discussing with businesses regarding gamification marketing, then very often they are able to say that, yeah, now I remember something. Now I remember that around like last year, one of our competitors did this game. Now, very often those memories are more than a month or more than a couple of months old. That means people remember those experiences for months to come. But it's very rare where someone will remember a banner or someone will remember a non-interactive campaign. So those just some examples. Emotions is like anticipation is like the game is like opening a box, right? So you click on the box and then it starts shaking and then a prize appears behind it. Or when you're clicking on a wheel of fortune and the wheel starts spinning, and then you have this anticipation emotion of what is the reward. So these are still images. I don't know why they're not moving. It's supposed to be GIFs, but whatever. On the gameplay part, the excitement is the same idea that the time is running out, but you know that you need to score more. So it's this kind of excitement, whether can you get there and whether you can, achieve the threshold. And then the interest emotion in different questionnaires like Jeopardy games or trivia games in that specific example, there's a Jeopardy game where we have 3 different topics and you don't know what's the question behind, let's say, Sports 200. So that's the interest of, before clicking on it, you're actually interested in what's coming next. And to kind of top it all off, as I said before, the key to retaining information is the active participation, the memories that you're getting, and your full focus into doing it. And that is my belief, and that is my kind of experience why gamification is so strong, is because it brings everything together. And in my eyes, it's the only kind of field that does so. No, like videos don't do it, posts don't do it, but gamification does. So there is a small question before I go on. I'd rather go into more detail about it later, but the question is how to discern scam gamified ads from the genuine ones. I think the question will be the same if you would ask how to discern scam from genuine, like scam advertisement from genuine advertisement. So the fact that it's gamified doesn't really contribute anymore to people having, fear of or like understanding maybe it's a scam. There are ways to ensure that it's not a scam. In short, you will need to have in your official website also some reference that you're actually doing it. The domain name is important and so on. But gamification itself doesn't in any way, shape or form improve the kind of scamability of of a campaign. So the C tier click-through rate on the ads, how will gamification improve it? And that's one thing that we constantly see. If you have the option in your advertisement or in your banner to use any sort of challenging call to action, then on average, your click-through rates on those banners and ads is 4 to 6 times higher. Now, what I mean here is sentences like test your knowledge, showcase your skill in 30 seconds, test your skill, or play and win, or can you answer all the questions in 30 seconds? Can you beat the high score? Can you beat your friend's score? I scored 90 points. Can you do better? And so on. These are all the messages that you can use with gamified ads, and they are very kind of logical and they're very kind of inviting. While if you don't have this interactive layer between, then these kinds of sentences don't have their place. So when we see our customers using these kinds of prompts when they're directing people to their gamified ads, then this 4 to 6 times higher click-through rate comes from our own case studies from our own customers. That is one of the strongest kind of entry points why gamified kind of campaigns already win over non-gamified when you just do the same exact design for a banner ad, but just change the text and compare those results on a Facebook feed, on an Instagram feed, and so on. So the second part is the retention of those campaigns. Now, what I mean by retention is, let's go back for a second. What I mean by retention is 2 main things. Number one, how often do your visitors and customers come back to that specific campaign, or come back to your website to look for that specific campaign? And also how many times on average they interact with that campaign, and how engaged are they when interacting with your campaign? Now, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to have this kind of a engagement length calculated when the interaction is not gamified, or when the campaign is not interactive, because you don't know how long time someone actually, in your website, how long were they engaged in your campaign versus how long they were just viewing around on the website. But in the gamified scene, we have that information on the dot. So I just took literally, these examples are 3 latest examples that we just currently have live. It is not just handpicked. As you can see as well, they're currently live until the end of October and so on. So what we see here, and that's the kind of real-time analytics that we see on all the gamified campaigns that we offer, is the average replay count. So how does it come? When you see that, for example, a game has 1,525 unique leads generated, but game started is 15,838. That means that one person on average plays for 10 times. And that also shows in the statistics. You can also see exactly how many times and how often a specific person played. Now, on average, again, jumping to the last point, it's 4.6 days on average retention, which means that if one person plays for 10 times, then those 10 gameplays are scattered around 4 to 5 separate days, which means they play once, they do their whatever they do during the day, and then the next day they'll come back, and maybe in 2 days they'll come back and participate again. So one of my favorite kind of or most underlooked statistics is the bounce rate. Now, with the gamified ads, the bounce rate is anywhere usually between 10 to 20 or maybe 20 to 25%, which means there are around 10 to 25% chance that someone comes to your, clicks on your ad or clicks on your campaign and then leaves without participating. Now, if you're marketers or if you're kind of performance marketers, then you will know that 10% bounce rate on your campaign is huge. It's really, really good. Now, when we're looking about the game completion, then it's around 80 to 98% on average. Like most of the time, it's like 95 to 99, but some specific game types have lower. And by lower, I still mean around 80%. That means that every time someone starts participating in that campaign, there is around 99% chance that they will finish the entire experience. Now, the last kind of important metric here is the average engagement length per gameplay. As you can see from those statistics here as well, then the average is between 45 to 60 seconds, which I always recommend the game length being. But if you see that there's around 98% of game completion rate, that means almost everyone who plays engages for 60 seconds. And if on average, everybody who plays it 10 times, then on average, you get 6 minutes per 6 minutes of engagement from one individual customer. Now, these results are definitely not possible to achieve without gamification. The last example I had here, for example, you had 19,000 leads played for 500,000 times. In that campaign, we had people, and we've had a lot of campaigns where there's around 3,000 gameplays per user. And if you take 3,000 gameplays, which is on average 60 seconds per gameplay, that's 3,000 minutes, which is what, like 60 hours? 60 hours over the course of 2 to 3 weeks, participating and being in your brand environment and knowing what you're about to say. So that's one of the reasons why, I mean, these numbers are taken from outside of Christmas time. Now, in Christmas times, you can, I believe, around double those numbers because people are just, as I said, more susceptible for those campaigns. Now, specifically more talking about retention, then in Christmas time, there's this awesome campaign type, which is advent calendar, a digital advent calendar. Now, there are the same examples that I showed before, but the most well-performing campaign that you can create during Christmas is, let's say, a 24-door advent calendar, where behind each door, each day people can come back and either participate in some kind of a campaign. They come back on door number 2, and then they maybe get a prize. They come back on door number 3, they do a quiz. They come back in door number 14, day number 14, they can play the bubble shooter game and so on. So you have 24 days full of active engagements without any kind of individual plans. It's just one coherent campaign. So I'm very much hoping that you will find a way, or maybe you've already planned of doing any digital advent calendar, but I do honestly believe that companies who are not using it are really losing out. Because, so there's a few ideas how we have seen our customers using digital advent calendars. They're showcasing unique campaigns every day. So some companies have like a lot of different products. And each day they showcase one product. So every day you come back, you'll learn about the properties of one specific product. And then you'll also get a discount voucher or something for that product. Now, you can also, for example, do this kind of a idea where if you open like 5 doors, then on Friday, each week, on Friday, there's a lottery between all the people who open the doors. Or on Fridays, you present them with a digital Wheel of Fortune, which also kind of encourages them to come back and participate in the campaign. One thing that has been done several times is introducing your partners on different campaigns. So if you have different cooperation partners, if you're like an agency, then each door on the Christmas campaign, that also is very suitable for like B2B businesses, B2B marketing. For example, if you have an agency and you want to showcase your clients, then on a digital advent calendar, each door represents one client. And you can create a customized experience for that one client. Daily quizzes and daily boardle games, for example, guess the daily discount voucher, discount code for that day, or build up to something big. If there's something really coming up, then each day incrementally increases the hype for what is coming. But the number that it brought out here is 18 days average retention, which means on average, if someone starts participating with your, starts opening one door in your advent calendar, then on average, they open 18 doors. Now that is huge when you want to showcase your products or showcase your partners, because rest assured, they get all the information you want. Now, the third part is the cost efficiency. So I haven't really discussed and I haven't really explained how to actually build them. So this is the, like I've discussed about the properties and like the ideas, but even at this point, if you would want to create any of those campaigns, then like, sure, that's cool, but where do I start? How do I start? So let me first go over how did it work and how people are used to thinking when we are talking to them for the first time. And probably if I would ask you, then there's a high chance you will think the same way. So what happens? Let's say we want to create a drop game where things are falling from the sky and then you have to catch them. And let's use the same drink example, where you would want to showcase your drink flavors. So none of you are probably game designers, so you wouldn't know, but then starts the period before actually having the campaign. So before the project, you first need to get the idea, right? Then you will need to convince the management. You need to get the budget signed off. Then you will need to find the developers or the cooperation partners. Most probably your developers in-house are majorly busy. So you probably need to start 8 months before you can even start with this project. Once you find the developers, then you assign a project manager, a designer, some creative to actually start kind of putting the idea together, and then you start the development. So I did this for a major part of my career when we were building those campaigns. And I know that on average, we were quite quick. So for us, it took like 3 to 6 weeks to get everything organized from the idea to actually starting the development. Usually it has like several back and forward meetings, and then finding the correct people and then actually starting the project off. And the price tag, depending on you calculate it, anywhere between 4,000 to 12,000 just for this period of time, if you consider the salaries and everything. Now, when you're actually building the product, then it's the most confusing part. Because as I said, you are probably not game designers and the developers are also probably not game designers. So now you have to start thinking, okay, so we have this idea for a game, but like how fast should those icons drop? How many scores should those give? Like, should we have multiple levels? Should we have like the character being animated? Should we have some power-ups? There are 105 questions you don't know the answer to. And then you will have endless back and forward meetings, kind of trying to figure out what to do. And then you'll eventually do something. And then sometimes the game is like not turning out how it's supposed to. Then you decide whether you actually want to kind of continue with the project or not, but you have poured in so much time and money that you have no choice to continue. So you eventually accept the final deliverable and hope it works. And then after the project, you really hope that it brought back the return on investment. And then what usually happens is you throw the project away. Right? You spend so much time creating this kind of an interaction, and then for what? And that is the main reason why companies are not using those things. Now, I, on the other hand, want to present something which is how to actually create one. How to actually come from this idea that we would want to have a drop game. We would want to see whether it works as it should be, but without any kind of commitment to like tens of thousands of euros. Or we would want to create a bubble shooter game to kind of understand whether our audience even likes it or not. So now I'll actually create some examples to kind of show you how easy it can be if you would want to create your own campaign that to be used during Christmas time. So the examples I'm about to show, they may not be like specifically Christmas themed, because most of the clients who are now using it, they're not ready to publish them or not ready to kind of showcase them on the call, which I did ask. But I did gather some of the clients who created the campaign before, and I'll be using those examples. And one example I'm about to do is just, I just made it up on my own. So let me, instead of sharing you the presentation, I will share with you my screen. If you have any questions, meanwhile, you have like a minute to ask them, and if not, then I'll move forward. Good. So again, if you find any other ways of creating those campaigns, whatever ways you can, my main point is I really hope that you find a way to create those interactive and gamified campaigns during Christmas times due to the results that I proposed or results that I demonstrated. I'm just using our own software as an example how to create one. There's not many those kinds of softwares out there, but hopefully you'll see the benefits of this one as well. So the idea is you want to create some kind of a campaign. So us personally, we have like 40 different campaign types to choose from. We have like questionnaires, competitive games, lotteries, whatever you want to create. Now, I was talking initially about this kind of a drop game, right? So in a drop game, I'll show you an example that one of our clients did on this kind of same drink proposal. So by creating this game, so the software basically really works so that every time you create a game, then on the right you can kind of see how the game looks and feels, and then on the left you can start editing it. Now, the only thing that our customer needed is these like 8 design icons, because now I can instead replace all of my icons that are dropping down with icons that represent the flavors of that drink. So I'll do a couple of examples. They are, as you can see, the sizes don't have to be perfect match. The game kind of resize them themselves. And of course, what you don't want to get in your drink is a fly. I always recommend having one like bad object that you have to avoid. And now we kind of have this game where flavors are dropping down, right? So I'm already being able to kind of score points and see like lose lives and the game ends. But I would also want to change my player image to something else. So after this example, I'll do 2 Christmas examples as well. So instead of having our own mascot collecting all the flavors, I have this kind of a product that I'm actually promoting that is collecting those flavors. Now, because this is a kind of a summer theme game, on the contrary to the Christmas theme, then they wanted to have this kind of a beach background, so they added a beach background to the game as well. And then now that the game is already kind of looks and feels, on top of the par, then we'll also want to kind of change the background for the game to actually be kind of more on theme. So I'll quickly change the background to something else that they used. Now, remember when I said that we had all those weeks and weeks and thousands of years of work to create a campaign, a gamified campaign? Then right here, this is the same exact campaign that I just created. All of this, of course, the text and everything can be edited as well. But if I ask my email, my full name, and display, then this is the exact game that I just created. I can now already have people come here and then test whether they even like this kind of an experience, what they think about it. And if they don't, I can just go back and do something else, do something new, and then test it again. Now, of course, as I said, there's a bunch of different game ideas that are more suitable for Christmas as well. So let me see, there is an example I showed you on the slides, which is this kind of a bubble shooter, right? So the idea is you kind of shoot those balls into something and then trying to get those matches. But in the Christmas theme, I would imagine that we would want to have some Christmas decoration instead. We would want to have not those game icons, but instead we'll be using those Christmas decorations. So let me add those Christmas decorations into the game and then just see how the game looks and feels. As you can see, the same thing, I'm adding images which are actually way larger, 300 by 300, but the game takes care of itself and kind of makes sure that everything works as expected. Now we have this kind of a Christmas kind of decoration bubble shooter, right? Where we can easily create a campaign around here for like a Christmas decoration campaign, where if you get at least 200 points within 30 seconds, then you enter into a raffle to win something. If you share this campaign with your friends, then you have double the chances of winning. Again, this space theme maybe is not on par with the actual Christmas campaign, So let me just have like a random background image that I took for Christmas. Let's use this, for example. It's too large, so the software will kind of compress it so I can still use it. And maybe instead of saying that welcome to my interactive marketing campaign, I will just change the text to take part in our Christmas bubble shooter. And I can also say reach top 50 by December 24 and enter into a raffle to win an iPhone 14. Great. Now, let's see. Now we already actually have all the campaign that I just created. The text hasn't updated yet, but it will like in a minute. And the same idea, I can already kind of start testing around. If I will publish this game like on Facebook and our social media, how do people react? Should I change something? If the game is too easy and I should make it harder. If I decide that, then I can just go back to the game, go to the game rules, and then change the kind of maybe the movement speed of the grid a little bit, so to make it harder. But everything, we don't need to involve 500 developers and project managers to make our own decisions. All marketing managers can do it on their own, just whatever ideas that comes to mind. And then what else is very suitable for like ladders and Christmas times, at least in some cultures, is the idea of a fortune cookie, right? Let's say we have an advent calendar. So let's do it. Let's do an advent calendar on the spot where each day we will have a different fortune cookie. So first of all, let's create one fortune cookie campaign. So for that, we'll be using like this open the box campaign. So this campaign type is where you click on an item, there's this anticipation, and then what happens. But instead of opening this present box, I would want to open a closed fortune cookie. Right? Now, what can be revealed from the fortune cookie is, of course, an opened fortune cookie. Good. Now, actually, the game is already ready. I can just click on it and the fortune cookie pops up. And then I will need to Google fortune cookie quotes. Let's see what we find here. Don't hold on to things that require tight grip. Good. Let's go to our campaign. Let's go to this text that appears after the game. And let's change the text to today's fortune reveals this quote. Make a little bit, maybe this a little bit smaller, this a little bit larger. Let's use our own font. And of course, as I showed it before, we can edit everything around it as well. Let me do a little bit of a background editing. So let's include maybe this background. Sorry, let's include the same background. And now we have our fortune cookie. We have our fortune cookie campaign. So let's see, let's give our information, let's click on it. The fortune cookie opens and we have our daily quote. Now, of course, there's 24 different doors, so we will need 24 different fortune cookie campaigns. Now, creating 24 different campaigns takes months, correct? Well, let's see. Let's take the same campaign and let's duplicate it. And on day number 2, we are using a different quote. I guess that's a quote that fortune cookie can use. Now, we have fortune cookie 1, and we have fortune cookie 2. And the last thing that we need to do is create our own advent calendar. So that really provides the only software that you can create this kind of an advent calendar. So quickly, let me do a very basic design for an advent calendar. So let's put in 24 doors. let's make the door numbers a little bit smaller. Let's do them here. And let's use an image for all the closed doors. Let's use this image. Good. Now, let's change the background again to something else. So we will have a more Christmassy vibe. And then we are now deciding what happens if they click on door number 1. To do it, we'll just click on door number 1, and door number 1 opens a campaign called Fortune Cookie 1. Door number 2 opens the campaign Fortune Cookie 2. And so on. We can change all the doors, we can have the custom styles and everything, but this is the amount of effort that is required to get the best performing Christmas campaign that we have, that is possible to create. So I click on door number 1, it asks for my registration for information. I can change all of this, customize exactly what I want to ask. Day number 1, I'm directed to the Fortune Cookie 1. All of my things are done. And what is my fortune day number 1? It's the one that I messed it up. On day number 2, I can have another thing, and so on. So that's the main thing that I really want to kind of communicate, that creating those things is not that difficult. It's actually very, very easy. And the results that are coming out of it are still majorly beneficial. They are the engagement length, the retention, and everything. So from that, there are a lot of different gamified Christmas ideas. As I said, we have around 40 different campaigns, and I can convert a Christmas campaign to each and every one of them. So if you would want to really know, like, how can I create one for your company? Then I'm always, after all the webinars, I'm always open to having one-on-one discussions of, hey, we have this, I don't know, we have what's the insurance agency. Surely we cannot use a gamified campaign. No problem. Let's hop on a call. I'll create some examples. Let's discuss how can you. And I still haven't found a single client or a single customer who we have not been able to create a campaign to. So as the last part, let me putting back the presentation. So as the last part, the only thing, if you ever want to kind of delve into more on the topic, see more relevant case studies. We have around 400 different campaigns that have been launched. I'm sure we can find a case study that kind of fits your vertical and fits your criteria. On the one-on-one discussion, I'll go specifically how this specific campaign time was reached and so on. So just go to adact.me/demo, and from there you can just pick a time of your convenience, and I will have a chat with you personally. So I'll actually publish the link here as well. And while that is going on, if there are, do any coding software development scanners? No, like if you go through exactly the examples that I showed you, then I personally just created all those campaign types in like a couple of minutes without any coding whatsoever. So there's no development skill, no coding required to create all of this. So if there are any further questions, if there is any specific questions on specific verticals or a specific kind of maybe use cases you would want to hear, then I'm still on the chat. Ask away, let me know. And there's a slight delay, so I'll just wait whether there's any questions popping up. If there are not, then I very much thank you for coming. I very much thank you for taking the time to kind of expand a little bit on the, there's a question, do they target overseas markets? Of course, all the campaigns target, like, they target anyone you want them to target, really. But yeah, so if there's anything else, then always reach out to me at caleb@interact.me, or I'll also provide you the opportunity to kind of get redirected to the actual demo part, and looking forward to hearing from you in the future. So thanks. And are there any campaign designs beyond Christmas themes? We have examples from Easter. Actually, I can take this minute, for example, to share some other campaign types that have been created. So if you don't leave right now, I'll show you some insights on what has been created. One of the very popular season beyond Christmas is also Halloween. Halloween also has a lot of different kind of design materials that can be used. So let me quickly showcase a couple of them. So those examples are in Estonian, I think. So we have this campaign for crypto company. Again, as you can see, fully customized design, their own fonts. They're also using a leaderboard name. And the game was about the whack-a-mole. Oh, I cannot show you this one, sadly, because it's way too expired. Let's see what happens here. So yeah, so this kind of a Halloween game where pumpkins were dropping down and you had to collect them into the thing, and you cannot miss. If you miss, then you lose life. Or if you collect the spiders, then you lose those lives. There's, let's see, I'll take this. So this was the kind of a whack-a-mole type of experience where you had to collect cryptos, but not click on the actual Halloween decorations. Otherwise, you'll lose points. So again, this kind of a leaderboard game. The game gets faster over time, and so on. So those campaigns can be used in any either seasonal or non-seasonal, or your own product promotion or whatever. I am very happy to kind of again, kind of explain your specific needs or your specific idea over a separate call. And as I said, like we have so many of those examples that I cannot in 1 hour kind of go through all of them, and that's why the actual demo call is great. All right. So again, thank you for joining. For any other further questions, caleb@interact.me, but I would just suggest you to book a short 15-20 minute call, and I'll explain exactly how can you specifically use those campaign types. Thanks, and see you around.